हेलो कायनातीस। ये है कायनाती चाय। और आज हमारे मेहमान हैं उस्मान खान। ये आर्टिस्ट हैं डीट्रॉइट, यहाँ पे मिशिगन जो स्टेट है वहाँ पर। ये अभी इनके आर्ट के ही सिलसिले में अभी बात करेंगे तो उसके ऊपर मैं अभी पहुँचता हूँ। लेकिन ये प्रोफेसर भी हैं। ये प्रोफेसर हैं पेनी डब्ल्यू स्टैम्प्स स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट एंड डिज़ाइन, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मिशिगन में। इनका काम जो है वो मुख्तलिफ जगहों पर दिखाया जा चुका है। मेरे यहाँ से पास, मैं मैसाचुसेट्स में हूँ, तो वहाँ पर अभी करीब मैसाचुसेट्स म्यूजियम ऑफ कंटेम्प्रेरी आर्ट है, मैस मोका। वहाँ पर मैंने इनकी एग्जीबिशन देखी, लेकिन इनके और काम जो हैं वो डिट्रॉइट, शंघाई, सैन होजे कैलिफोर्निया में, न्यूयॉर्क में मुख्तलिफ जगहों के ऊपर दिखाए जा चुके हैं। और 2020 में इनको गुगनहाइम फेलोशिप भी मिली। तो अगर आपको पता है गुगनहाइम के बारे में तो आप इम्प्रेस और ज़्यादा हो जाएंगे, और अगर आपको नहीं पता तो आप चेकआउट करें। ये बड़ी एक प्रेस्टिजियस किस्म की एक फेलोशिप है, और उनको और भी मुख्तलिफ किस्म के अवार्ड्स मिल चुके हैं। इनका काम मुख्तलिफ जगहों पर डिस्कस किया है। और ये को डायरेक्टर हैं इंडस डिट्रॉइट आर्टिस्ट रेजिडेंसी और कल्चर लैब। और ये इन्होंने एक और एग्जीबिशन जो है वो भी उसके क्यूरेटर हैं, हलाल मेट्रोपोलिस। और इसके अलावा इनका एक म्यूज़िक ग्रुप भी है जो एस्ट्रो मिस्टिक के नाम से, जैज़ के सिलसिले में, जिसके सिलसिले में हम और भी बात करेंगे। लेकिन इससे पहले उस्मान साहब, खुश आमदेद।
Thank you, Salman. Hello, Chai Wale. It's my pleasure to be here.
बहुत
And
बहुत
thank you for the such kind words of
नहीं नहीं, बहुत
introduction.
बहुत शुक्रिया
हाँ,
आपका। तो इससे पहले कि मैं और बात करूं, मैं थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड दे दूं। लोग जो हैं वो, यहाँ पर हम अक्सर एस्ट्रोनॉमी के बारे में बात करते हैं या साइंस के बारे में बात
जी जी
करते हैं। और इट्स ऑलवेज अ प्लेजर आर्टिस्ट से अगर बात हो, और आर्टिस्ट जिसका साइंस से थोड़ा सा कनेक्शन भी बन जाता है। तो सबसे पहले तो मैं ये बता दूं कि ये इनकी एक एग्जीबिशन थी, इसका नाम था रोड टू हाइब्रिडाबाद। और ये जो मैंने जिक्र किया, मैस मोका, ये वहाँ के ऊपर थी। तो मैं ज़रा एक दफ़ा खोल के दिखा दूं, क्योंकि मेरा ख्याल है कि ये जो इसका मैप है, मुझे तो यही काफ़ी ज़बरदस्त किस्म का लग रहा था, क्योंकि इसके अंदर आपको मुख्तलिफ चीज़ें नज़र आएंगी। तो इससे पहले कि मैं आपसे ज़रा स्पेसिफिक कुछ सवाल पूछूं इस एग्जीबिशन के बारे में, अगर आप थोड़ा सा बता सकें कि ये जो रोड जो हाइब्रिडाबाद, वो क्या है? वैसे मेरी पैदाइश जो है वो हाइब्रिडाबाद तो नहीं, लेकिन
हैदर
हैदराबाद है, जो सिंध वाला हैदराबाद है। तो
अच्छा
ज़रा आप बता सकते हैं कि ये एग्जीबिशन क्या है?
तो ये एग्जीबिशन अगर मायना करे मैं इंग्लिश में ही बता दूंगा कि so the exhibition comes about first the road to Hybridabad is a play on there were movies in the 1950s in America, kind of Orientalist movies by with Bing Crosby and Bob Hope called The Road to Zanzibar, Road to Rio. So it's a play on that. And this idea of Hybridabad being this fictional magical city that all immigrants are looking for. So it is ultimately the exhibition is the story is an immigrant story.
और अगर मैं ये कह चुकूँ कि आप जो हैं यू ग्रो अप इन पाकिस्तान, मगर उसके बाद आप अमेरिका आ गए थे, तो आप अमेरिका में बहुत काफ़ी अरसे से हैं।
बहुत अरसे मैं 1.5 साल का था जब अमेरिका से मतलब अमेरिका हूँ तो एक तरह से कह सकते हैं कि मैं न्यूयॉर्क का हूँ अमेरिका का तो नहीं
राइट राइट।
न्यूयॉर्क का अपना कोई खास मतलब कल्चर है अमेरिका अब आया हूँ डिट्रॉइट आके
ठीक ठीक ठीक। और
तो
मुझे भी काफ़ी अरसा हो गया। सो वो रेजोनेट करती है जो आपने इमिग्रेशन की बात की, लाइक एज एन
हाँ
इमिग्रेंट आइडेंटिटी,
बिल्कुल
जिसके ऊपर था।
So I think that's what the exhibition is essentially about कि हमारी identity कहाँ है. So for the longest time for the immigrant, it the homeland calls. So am I Pakistani? The new home refuses to understand you a little bit. Growing up, we never saw South Asians on TV. Uh, उस लिहाज से न्यूयॉर्क ज़रा different था मगर bigger America never represented us.
राइट।
Things are changing, of course. So I think one kind of realization was also that I will also not ever be Pakistani enough.
Right,
एक तरह से पाकिस्तान में भी टूरिस्ट ही हूँ.
right.
जाते थे हर 2 साल 3 4 महीने. That's not really being from there either. So this is the new land, this Hybridabad that must accept me and must accept my culture. And a lot of the work is dealing with me, what we call active hybridity, forcing our narratives, our stories, our culture into this new land. Because if it doesn't accept us, we will make sure our stories are also told. So some of it came about moving to Detroit. That like, I don't know, okay, the real America, the real inner America, it doesn't tell our stories. Either they can. There's a huge Muslim population, the largest. जब मैं आया था कोई नहीं क्या there was no they weren't in government. The stories being told about Detroit never reflected Arab stories or Bangladeshi stories, let alone Pakistani, who are a smaller population, and Indians are smaller in number. So things are changing, but it's changing because we are here and we're forcing these conversations.
नहीं, बड़ा ज़बरदस्त है। और मैं ये कहना चलूँ कि कंसिडरिंग कि आप 1.5 साल के थे जब आप आ गए थे, आपकी उर्दू जो है दैट्स बीन फिनोमेनल। आई मीन लाइक क्योंकि इसमें जो है वो टाइम लगता है।
बाप की
मगर
हिम्मत.
लेकिन सो एक चीज़ तो अगेन कमिंग बैक टू आपकी जो एग्ज़िबिशन है, अ, जो अगर कोई कायनातीज़ हैं जो मैसाचुसेट्स या न्यू इंग्लैंड एरिया या न्यूयॉर्क के आस-पास हैं, तो आप जाकर उसको चेक आउट कर सकते हैं। मगर आपका काम जो है अ, उसमें आइडेंटिटी का बहुत बड़ा हाथ है, राइट? हमने जिस तरह से आपने
बिल्कुल.
किया, आई मीन
हाँ,
लाइक खाली आइडेंटिटी नहीं बल्कि आप जो एक किस्म की साउथ एशियन या पाकिस्तानी आइडेंटिटी।
बिल्कुल.
और अगर मैं
मुसलमान.
उसकी
हाँ,
एक दो मिसालें दूं, आपका जो एंट्रेंस है जो एक्चुअली बड़ी ज़बरदस्त थी। मैं वो आई डोंट नो कि उसकी मेरे पास यहाँ पर एक थोड़ी सी तस्वीर है। वेल, ये जस्टिस तो नहीं करती, लेकिन ये थोड़ा सा वहां पर एक बड़ा सारा एक देव जैसा फेस्ड मुंह मौजूद है, राइट? आई मीन आपकी जो एग्जीबिशन है दैट वाज इंस्पायर्ड बाय अरेबियन नाइट्स टू अ
बिल्कुल.
सर्टेन डिग्री, पार्ट
टू
ऑफ
टू
इट, राइट? सो
हाँ, हाँ,
जो कि
बिल्कुल.
ऑल्सो पाकिस्तान, आई मीन साउथ एशियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अरेबियन नाइट्स
कॉन्टेक्ट्स.
को जो
हाँ,
दास्तान मीर हमजा टाइप या अल्फ लैला
बिल्कुल.
उसके
हाँ, हाँ,
हिसाब से,
बिल्कुल सारे जो folk tales, fantastical folk tales,
राइट?
right, are at the
तो
heart of it.
ये
Yeah.
तो ये जो एग्जीबिशन हॉल के अंदर जाने के लिए वहां पर एक बड़ा सारा मुंह मौजूद है और वो सवाल पूछता है और आपको सही जवाब देना है। अगर आप सही जवाब दें तो उसका मुंह खुलता है एंड देन यू कैन गो इन। ये मैकेनिकल वो है, तो
जी, जी.
जबरदस्त। ये इसका बैकग्राउंड क्या है? हु वाज दैट?
So
देव
that's
क्या है क्या? या
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ. So a couple of things जैसे आप कह रहे हैं ना, much of the metaphors are inspired by folk tales. So we can think of, yeah, याद होगा अली बाबा का खुल जाओ सिमसम or पहाड़ी खुलती है, and then you get access to the treasure. So एक तरह से that was one of the influences, the idea of the Sphinx. But the particulars of the face is it's Cyril Radcliffe, who is the bureaucrat, the lawyer who was responsible for drawing the line that separated Pakistan from India. And here he acts like a similar type of agent. His wig becomes horns, a jinn or deo of sorts that's preventing, as all immigrants know, entry. And there are two types of entry represented in this exhibition. One is you enter by knowing, by having knowledge. Has as many of us in a way entered the U.S., be it by educating, but understanding the rules, playing by the rules. Um, Ultimately, the questions he asks are all based on the U.S. immigration test, and so the answers are kind of related to that as well. So that type of entry is one of knowledge and knowing. Uh, and once you know the right password, you're allowed to enter. There's another entry space which has been destroyed, kind of this idea of a forced entry. Like at the same time, you will not deny us entry, even if you want to, which we can talk to later. Which mimics the Palestinian Wall and the ideas of these other type of barriers. So it's really making an argument for you try to deny us access, but we will find ways to
to
enter,
get in.
to get in. Yeah,
और अगर लोगों को नहीं पता, रेड क्लिफ जो है, आई मीन वो मशहूर है
Mashuda.
इस वजह से कि ही ड्रू द लाइंस जो पाकिस्तान और इंडिया के उसमें थे, विदाउट एवर एक्चुअली लुकिंग एट डाउन, एक्चुअली फिजिकली गोइंग देयर, के ऑन द ग्राउंड क्या रियलिटी है। और वो जो हम बात करते हैं सब कॉन्टिनेंट की, जो पार्टीशन थी, इट वाज सो ब्लडी। पार्ट ऑफ द रीजन इज बिकॉज ऑफ रेड क्लिफ, बिकॉज
बिल्कुल
उसने जो है कोई उसको कोई उसने अटेंशन ही नहीं दी कि ऑन द ग्राउंड क्या सिचुएशन है। ही जस्ट ड्रू द लाइंस famously. He was proud of never actually going there to actually draw the lines
बिल्कुल
on the map.
और ड्रॉ करके भाग गया.
Draw करके भाग गया वो, yeah.
बिल्कुल. And I had a in a previous project was had drawn the line just to do it, and you realize that if you just move your hand by accident, a whole village is wiped out, and that's exactly villages were cut in half. Just willy nilly, bilkul,
Right,
that he never actually paid attention to the actual lives and people living where this line was being drawn. It was, yeah. So in a way, he does represent the kind of colonial devil
right,
that caused so much pain for our
right.
people.
Colonial देव एक
Deo,
हिसाब से जो
exactly.
है। so actually let's connect that, क्योंकि आपकी जो एग्जीबिशन है उसमें एक दीवार भी साथ में चल रही है,
जी जी.
राइट, लाइक जो डिवाइड करती है एक लिहाज से एक तरफ की एग्जीबिशन को दूसरी तरफ की।
बिल्कुल.
कैन यू से अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट वो जो
हाँ
दीवार
तो
वो क्या है?
well again another type of notion of partition, hospital in America, the kind of southern wall that Trump keeps trumpeting about okay, how important it is. The particulars of that wall, there it is that it's based on the apartheid or the West End wall that separates Israel from the West Bank of Palestine. So it is particularly looking like that wall, but it also could be understood as any wall, any barrier preventing us to get to the other side, which is this promised space called the Oasis, the land of milk and honey. But when you do get there, you see that there's this truck with a big speaker system that's blown down the wall, which is a allusion to the tale of Jericho, which was a tale of the Jews being kept out of a city, and then they blew their horns and brought down this. So it's a tale for themselves to remember that once they were also kept out, and but here it's not, it's alluded to, but it's not necessarily about Israel or Palestine. It's the ideas of promised lands and denial of, other people getting that access to resources, to lands of plenty.
और ये हमें क्या इसको इस तरह से भी देख सकते हैं कि ये जो कल्चर है, लाइक लाइक म्यूजिक इज पार्ट ऑफ दैट, लाइक साउंड, आई मीन विद
बिल्कुल.
इन द, कि वो एक ऐसी चीज है कि जो दीवार से नहीं रुक सकती, मगर इट गोज अक्रॉस। क्या बॉर्डर पे आप वो कर सकते हैं, मगर इट गोज अक्रॉस, इज दैट द टाइप ऑफ थिंग यू आर गेटिंग इट?
As well. I mean, the actual tale that could bring the kind of romantic idea that sound could bring a wall down, but in more reality is what you're saying, that in a way sound or culture doesn't, walls can never keep it out, right? Think about even food. Even, everyone knows Nusrat Fateh Ali in America, even as they're denying people entrance. So you're right. And then the part of the inspiration came from, as a big truck playing music, you feel your walls vibrate and you hear the music. So there's the reality of that those waves do penetrate, but we might think it more metaphorically as a culture, as a that the culture kind of will always penetrate into and mix with the other side.
So,
And
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
one other note I wanted to make, especially with thinking about the folk tales, especially about folk tales, the project actually really initially started, and this is what I received the Guggenheim for, was I was looking at that idea, looking through. Arthur C. Clarke has a little phrase that he says, any technology advanced enough looks like magic. So then basically I was making the argument, then if that is true, then all the magic found in our folk tales must be aspirational technology.
Hmm.
That it's not about superstition, but rather it's aspirational technology. It's just not understood or not able to be realized. And so that actually started my process, is to sort of say, oh wow, our contemporary technologies actually can realize quite a bit of that magic. Not all of it, but quite a bit of that. And it's not even magic. It's aspirational technologies, and in that sense, decolonized technology. These are
Right.
pre-colonial ideas of what technology could or should be. So it was a little play on both the idea that technology has cultural roots, but here we rephrase it within our own context.
और आर्थर सी क्लार्क का लोग फेमिलियर होंगे और आर्थर सी क्लार्क का एक और जो कॉलोनियल कनेक्शन एक लिहाज से बनता है वो ये है कि आई मीन ही वेंट टू श्रीलंका आई मीन ही एक्चुअली लिव्ड ओवर देयर सो आई मीन इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट
Right.
नॉट एग्जैक्टली कॉलोनियल मगर नेवरदलेस ही वाज इन द ग्लोबल साउथ
Right.
इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो आपके जो एक चीज़ दो चीज़ें जो मैं हाईलाइट करना चाहता हूँ लेकिन उसमें से जो पहली चीज़ है जो भी आपने जिस चीज़ की बात की कि वो जो फ्लाइंग कारपेट्स उड़ने वाला कालीन राइट आई मीन आई नो सो वी ऑल नो अल्फ लैला पहले वो होता था वो टीवी के ऊपर एक शो भी होता था उसमें ज़रा स्पेशल इफेक्ट्स तो ज़रा काफ़ी प्रिमिटिव थे लेकिन एंड इन द एग्जीबिशन यू एक्चुअली हैव सम मूवीज आल्सो विद क्लिप्स जो कि पुरानी पाकिस्तानी फिल्मों के ऊपर भी
एक
है विद
लॉलीवुड की
रियली
मूवी है.
टेरेबल स्पेशल इफेक्ट्स लेकिन तो अल्फ लैला में वो दिखाते हैं वो फ्लाइंग कारपेट अच्छा आपकी एग्जीबिशन में यू डू हैव फ्लाइंग कारपेट्स इन
जी
देयर
जी.
मगर उसमें थोड़ी सी टेक्नोलॉजी है तो वो फ्लाइंग कारपेट्स जो हैं वो कैसे हैं आपकी एग्जीबिशन में
So two, three things. So in the exhibition, again, we will talk about the different technologies, but there's a twist in them reflecting on the contemporary condition. So the flying carpets in the exhibition are made from hobbyist drone technology. Uh, the one we see with the four
Yeah,
quadcopter
right.
type of machines. But here, I'm also thinking about drones and what they mean to our community. So, for most of our community, drones are killing machines, yes, surveillance machines. So, rather than these flying carpets being Aladdin's friend and taking him places as Disney would show it, they're actually caged because they're violent. They're almost displayed like a pride of lions. There's a
Mm.
mother lion and this, and they're little the smaller ones. So the idea was, they in thinking about the contemporary, the real idea is these carpets made out of drone technology are violent. They're dangerous. They need to be caged. So it's a retelling of the story, and I think that's the also beauty of the storyteller. Uh, um, we retell the story with our flourishes. So yeah. So that's where that one sort of came about.
That was beautiful. I mean, and or the cage hai, that in itself is sort of like it's not just a cage, but it's sort of like a Mughal era, or I mean, it's inspired by that, right? Sort of like that kind of an
Bilkul.
architecture.
So initially inspired by Victorian cages for birds, matlab,
Ah,
seeing them that they're quite ornate, and then it's not an exact copy of the Taj Mahal, but let's say inspired by it.
yeah.
So absolutely, it has that kind of Mughal architecture that's entrapping these wild and dangerous carpets. Funny enough, just a aside, the original story, the real original story, the carpet transports you. It doesn't. You don't fly on it. That was a kind of colonial, through the retelling and telling that it becomes a flying carpet. In the original, it you dream it and it you get transported.
But there is no actual flying carpet. मतलब ये है कि आप उसके ऊपर चले. It's more like Star Trek. I mean,
More like
कि
Star
वो
Trek. Bilkul, more like Star Trek. So we're not even there. Our technology is not even. as far advanced as the the kind of dreamt pre-colonial the technology.
Right. So it's again, it's the imagination, right? I mean,
It's
like,
the
so in
imagination.
between, क्योंकि वो एक plane या flying के उसमें, so you need a medium to that. मगर you can also think about Star Trek, के you just get transported to another place,
Transported.
holodeck के ज़रिए, like, yeah,
Haha,
transporter
exactly.
beam, yeah.
Huh.
I see.
So
And और अगर मैं बता सकूं कि, like, those carpets जो हैं आपके, they actually do fly,
हाँ,
उस केज के अंदर, like, because
बिल्कुल.
of those, वो जो drones आपने लगाए हुए हैं उसके अंदर से, they actually do go up and down. So that, I think it's really good.
So on one
uh,
level, there's that a reality of it does work, but then this other the story of how I'm interpreting it as well.
and for us, I mean, it's relevant Pakistan के हिसाब से, क्योंकि there were a lot of drones,
Uh,
were like
absolutely.
part of the Afghan war, but also in Pakistan. I mean,
In
that was
Pakistan.
actually a big
Hmm.
story in terms of there were a lot of drone attacks.
Bilkul, bilkul. There's a newspaper in. There's four newspapers. One of them is called Drone Score, which shows all the killings from all the killings in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Yemen. So there's yeah.
And that started it. I mean, in some sense,
Hmm.
अब तो खैर people are more used to it. कि अब तो मुख्तलिफ जगहों के ऊपर होता है, और अब और मुल्क भी करते हैं, मगर
Bilkul,
that's where it
bilkul.
started. I mean, that was the first time, and people were like, this is not a good idea, मगर that's now it has been normalized in
Normalize,
some
yeah.
sense.
Turn warfare into gaming
Uh,
a little bit, huh?
Okay, so one more question about, we're getting towards the end, मगर one more question in
Oh,
terms of the exhibition, and
GG.
I was fascinated by it. आपने आर्थर सी क्लार्क का भी जिक्र किया, so obvious कान खड़ा हो जाता है इस सिलसिले में. In the same way, वहाँ पे you have an Apollo 11 lander,
GG.
और उसके ऊपर जो है, so but it has a twist to it. So can you tell me a little bit about कि वो Apollo 11 lander जो है, for our audience as well, उसका क्या ताल्लुक है?
So on top of this lander is a sculpture of a Barak. The Barak is, for those who may not know, a mythical creature from Islamic lore. If you believe a real creature that transported the Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Jerusalem before his journey to heaven. Um, um, so this creature often is represented in Persia and Pakistan as having a body of a horse, wings, and a head of a woman. In the Quran, it's more described as a handsome steed, nothing more. That's all it sort of says. But in Indo-Persian depictions, it's usually with the head of a woman. So that's sort of put there. So this conflation, again, this is where hybridity comes in, about vehicles that take us to heaven, be it the true heaven or the dreamt heaven of the moon, are sort of combined. Um, for me, it's important that the West also knows about our mythologies, our fantastical creatures. We know the Pegasus. Now everyone should also know the Barak. So
Right.
getting that equity in thought, but also just sort of a alternate futurism
Right.
of kind of Islamic futurism or South Asian futurism as well, where these two come together. And the statue itself is built on what used to be coin operated little writing machines that usually for kids that I grew up with that were all around New York. These days in America, because of insurance, they're no longer that popular. But growing up, they used to be everywhere. So one of those has been modified. So if you do put 50 cents in, it does sort of move and gyrate. Uh,
पाकिस्तान में, आई रिमेम्बर, प्लेलैंड होता था कराची में पहले जो है,
बिल्कुल
लेकिन
बिल्कुल
उसके
हाँ मुझे
अंदर वो
प्ले लैंड याद है
थोड़ा सा जो है, आप घोड़े के ऊपर बैठे तो,
uh, and
that's,
in
yeah.
all honesty, it's actually facing Jerusalem.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
That's
I
why
see.
its positioning is sort of unusual. Like you
Yeah.
walk into its back because that's the direction towards Jerusalem.
So I have a question. So by the way, this is really interesting, right? I mean, I can आपने कहा कि जिस तरह वो जो Pegasus है या जो Greek mythologies हैं, people are more
बिल्कुल.
familiar with that, मगर South Asian नहीं. How did you get interested in it? How आपको, I mean, like, ये जो Alf Laila या इस किस्म की जो स्टोरीज हैं, हाउ वर यू एक्सपोज टू देम?
तो वही ना, वही ग्रोइंग अप, मैं पापा की हिम्मत की बात कर रहा था। हर हर रात को हम उर्दू पढ़ते थे, कायदे या, हाँ, तो एक लिहाज से इट्स बिन फेड टू मी, but only from one ear, एक जो कहते हैं ना, मतलब more के only from the family side, not from the environment I grew up in. तो ठीक है, when you're young you're not thinking as much, but as you grow older there's a sense that nahin, 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 you know, this world should also know about this stuff. I'm part of this world. Uh, um, um, so I want it also to reflect me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to always have to go to Pakistan to find that. As I said, I'm no longer I'm here now. I'm about here. So I have another project that I did where I hybridize a used U-Haul into one of our Pakistani trucks. It's
Hmm.
not quite a pure Pakistani truck, not quite a U-Haul, but something in between. One of it is this idea of decolonizing. That's not to say we throw away things like science and that, because it's built on a lot of knowledge, but that there's other logics
Hmm.
at play. You know, the truck is a good example. From a capitalist logic, it's silly. There's so much weight, so much color. Why would you do that? You want efficiency, you know. But the beauty of those trucks, for those who've seen them, the joy, I, you know, it's a different logic. That's all I can say. That it's not wrong. It's just different. So you think efficiency is more important. I think ornamentation and the beauty it brings in the landscape is more important. And we can see this in many ways. But in also thinking about this, you know, the idea, I know we always feel it that, you know, the Muslim world carried science into the West, and our story is always forgotten. Somehow it went from the Greeks straight to the Enlightenment, and we always are banging down doors. We just have to keep banging down those doors because it's true. If it wasn't for that civilization, things would have been lost.
And not just lost. I mean, it was that's the other thing. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes
not just
people
lost,
think the
added
people just
to.
stored it. Yeah,
Huh,
it
huh,
was
huh,
like
huh, huh.
it was developed in there. Yeah.
You know, much added, I should
Yeah.
say, like the absolutely fundamental ways of rethinking, of observing, were made in the Muslim world.
Right. No, I
So,
think, yeah, no, this is really, I mean, एक लिहाज से, I mean, जो हम बातचीत कर रहे हैं, I mean, it's in some ways it's more relevant to, जैसा मैं भी बीच में हूँ, like, you know, ना इधर ना उधर, आप भी बीच में हैं, और बीच में भी बहुत लोग हैं, right? और like, you
बहुत
know, and
लोग हैं,
that's
बिल्कुल।
also
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ।
a part of the thing, and और आप जो हैं दोनों तरफ की स्टोरीज जो हैं वो उसको लेके आते हैं। I should mention कि I grew up in Pakistan,
जी, जी।
और I love reading Urdu की जो किताबें हैं, but the reason I really liked reading was because of दास्तान अमीर हमजा। उसके
हाँ, हाँ,
10
हाँ,
हिस्से थे for
बिल्कुल।
kids। मकबूल जहांगीर was somebody who translated these books for kids, or that was the reason I started reading, क्योंकि it was so gripping, and he did a really good job. And by the way, when I came here, मैं undergraduate के लिए आया था, I brought these with me। वो जो मेरे पास जो 10 हिस्से हैं, I actually have them with me, क्योंकि I just thought कि those were so influential,
जी,
कि
जी, जी।
उसमें बादशाह का ख्वाब उसका जो है वो पहला हिस्सा था, and this and that, like, you know, and those stories are so rich. I mean, Lord of the Rings and others, like, you know, I mean, अक्सर we watched Lord of the Rings, like, yeah, but this idea was kind of like, you know, Daste I mean, Hamza, it was kind
हाँ,
of like that, but Deo jo hai wo is tarah se kar raha hai, and of
बिल्कुल,
course
बिल्कुल।
everybody borrows from everybody,
Right,
because
right,
that's
right।
such a rich history।
And actually, wonderfully, maybe for your son, there's a now an English translation.
Yeah,
That's quite good. That's quite good.
that's a pretty thick wo jo, yeah, that's right,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's right. So no, it's
Um, just another thing, because I know you have connections with astronomy. The poles, the what I call the totemic poles that are in the big
right,
gallery,
yeah.
they're in this shape of the constellation Taurus.
Oh yeah, I saw that उसमें जो है जिक्र था Pleiades और
Or no, Pleiades,
Taurus का।
huh?
Right, right,
Many reasons. That's supposedly my astrological sign.
right. Okay.
Um, I don't put too much,
Yeah.
faith in, or belief in those systems, but also just this idea of different logics
Right.
of arrangement. There's a very early cave drawing of a cow that some people are arguing there's some dots kind of to the side that's the Pleiades, and that this is, in the Paleolithic time, that they were actually drawing the Taurus
Huh.
constellation. I don't know if that's a
That's
true, but it's a
cool.
lovely story that even in the
Okay.
Paleolithic times they were acknowledging the stars in some ways. So
Oh, I'm 100% sure. I mean, खास तौर से उस वक्त तो लाइट पोल्यूशन भी नहीं थी.
हाँ
So
बिल्कुल
ऊपर
वही ना.
देखेंगे, I mean, you're gonna look up, you go like, टीवी भी नहीं है, तो ज़्यादा टाइम जो है वो सोचने में ज़्यादा लगेगा. ओके, सो टुवर्ड्स द एंड अगर आप 2 चीज़ों के बारे में आपसे पता करना था.
जी जी
एक तो आपका एक और प्रोजेक्ट है हलाल मेट्रोपोलिस.
जी जी
वो
जी.
क्या है?
तो वो it was more जो कहते हैं ना curatorial, meaning not me showing my
ओके,
work but
दूसरे हाँ.
दूसरों का. तो वही था, मैं यहाँ आया हूँ, 15 साल हो गए हैं, into the Detroit Southeast Michigan. Huge Muslim population, खास तौर पे from the Arab world, but also Black Muslims and newer South Asian, be it Pakistani, Indian or Bangladeshi. मगर हमारी कहानियाँ नहीं बोली जा रही हैं, right? Our narratives are not. मैं आया, it was all about black and white narratives. ठीक है, I mean, I'm not going to take anything from those, but where's our narratives? If you look around, we're everywhere here. We saved certain. Dearborn was saved because of immigrants. Hamtramck was saved because of immigrants. Detroit desperately needs immigrants. Khali pada hua hai. Okay, but so that's where Halal Metropolis, that we are present but we're not visible. So that's what the exhibition really just desired to do: acknowledge our presence, our visibility. So it was both a cultural exhibition and an artist's exhibition. So we talked about the history of how Muslims came into this space. Um, Again, the different Muslim communities. So both Arab as well as Black Muslims who have slightly different histories, and the newer immigrants from South Asia and Africa. And then artists also working. So it really was that desire to sort of यही होता है ना कि और लोग तो नहीं करते हमारे लिए, right? They're not going to do it for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
The gatekeepers, they, and so it's also to say, okay, we need to do it ourselves. If others won't do it, we'll do it ourselves. So that's where the inspiration came out of. Then COVID hit, so we had to transform. We moved into Zoom, and as you know, put stuff up kind of more on the digital stage. And then finally, when COVID uh, passed, we were able to finish the last two exhibitions.
I see.
So yeah, it was again this idea, and I think it's just as our communities are gaining political, economic strength here, and acknowledging that we are here kind of to stay, and we need to have that place where we feel comfortable. We're not the we're not the quiet uh, immigrant kind of right. I mean, I'm thinking about not only for you but your son.
Right,
For him,
right,
Pakistan will be a nice place to visit where
right,
like
right.
a
एक थोड़ा सा दूर, yeah,
thoda sa dur hai, but
yeah,
you want him to have a version of the world that he fits in.
right,
So I think that's where a lot of my impetus is. Ke, I want a world where I fit in, because there was an America I did not fit in,
right, right. नहीं,
and
जबरदस्त.
uh,
Yeah, no, this is actually really a pleasure. और आखिरी चीज़
जी जी
जाने से पहले, और वो ये है कि आपका जो ग्रुप है
जी जी.
म्यूजिक का, एस्ट्रो मिस्टिक, वो क्या है?
तो वो भी यही हलाल मेट्रोपोलिस के अ, लगभग ना it got created. तो एक तो the history of jazz here has a very strong connection with Islam. So
Right.
when I first sort of thought of it, एक मशहूर musician है John Coltrane, who has an album called A Love Supreme. So I approached some of these musicians के यार A Love Supreme को ना जिक्र बनाते हैं.
हाँ,
So in the music he repeats Allah Supreme. मैंने कहा, और कई खास तौर पर मुसलमान कहते हैं यार he's actually saying Allah Supreme, Allah Supreme. So if you ever hear it, you'll see the cadence. I
Ah,
don't think he actually is, but you can see how that slippage has happened. So we were just joking together with these uh, musicians who are actually both Pakistan. They're the group that I was talking to. They're both black musicians and Pakistani as well. And we decided to further relook at the history of Muslims in jazz, but also to take it forward. Not my interest, I think, is not only to stick in tradition. ये भी होता है हमारी communities के साथ ना कि ट्रेडिशन में रुक जाते हैं जब जो पाकिस्तान मैं बड़ा हूँ ना वो 70s का पाकिस्तान है हालांकि 1980 हुआ है 1990 my parents को तो 70s का याद है ना so it sort of gets ossified for many people, whatever era they come in. I mean, we used to go back and I'd be like, यार पाकिस्तान तो बड़ा hip है, मेरा पाकिस्तान तो बड़ा वो है, slow है, you know, things like that, realizations. So for me also, it's to think ये hybrid culture क्या है?
hmm,
It's not necessarily exactly what's happening in Pakistan. ना मतलब we're not going to assimilate it into white America. हमारा हमारी अपनी चीज़ें हैं. And we're seeing more and more of that. अब जैसे यहाँ यमनी चाय हाउसेस बहुत खुल गए हैं. So I don't have to go to a bar. I can, you know, it's nice to go and get chai and stuff like that. And there's a kind of pleasure. So same with the music. In Tika, I mean, I love traditional Pakistani music, but can we also move it into new forms? So that's where that came about. And inshallah, you'll have a chance to hear it sometime soon. And
दैट्स ग्रेट। और
yeah,
आपके जो लिंक्स हैं यहाँ
जी,
पे नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन में वीडियो के आई पुट इन लिंक्स, या ये आपके जो मुख्तलिफ प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं आपके अपना वेबसाइट के ऊपर, मैस्मो का यहाँ पे जो आपकी एग्जीबिशन है, और अगर लोगों को मौका मिले प्लीज़ चेक इट आउट, इट्स रियली फिनोमिनल। और उस्मान साहब आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया टाइम
नहीं
देने का।
सलमान साहब
इट्स अ
आपका
प्लेजर।
बहुत thank you for inviting me. It's on a lovely channel with
और
so
ये
much
दूर से
so much.
चाय की बात, वरना असल चाय आपने यमनी चाय की बात कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पर हम कायनाती चाय जो है उसकी
बिल्कुल वही ना.
तो
So thank you so much for inviting me. It was
बहुत
my
बहुत शुक्रिया।
true pleasure for being here.
थैंक यू। थैंक यू।